my 2014 Ford Escape that my husband worked on that had the carbon issue 4 years ago. I'm actually the first one and only owner of this vehicle. I bought it brand new as kind of a forever car before we met. It was paid off when we met, and we just wanted to go through and tell you kind of some good things, bad things, things we've done to it. As of right now, it has 113,219 miles on it. When I actually bought this car, I was excited that it had a turbo in it. I was like, oh yay, turbo, so cool. But what I didn't realize is all the issues that came with that potentially. But I'm glad that I did buy the extended warranty on this because it ended up being very useful. And we've used it. It's paid for itself 3 times over. From here, my husband's gonna pick up where I left off on what issues we've had, what all he's done to fix them, and we're gonna go from there.
Since the last video, the main issue that I thought was wrong with it, the carbon, wasn't the issue. The issue was bad head gaskets, which are prone to happen on these new Ecoboost engines. After a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of banging my head against the wall, I happened to be explaining to a manager at Ford what was going on with the vehicle, and a mechanic said that I needed to get a compression test and a radiator pressure test to make sure that the head gasket was good, because it will not shoot a code because it just barely leaks enough coolant to cause a misfire, and the computer will not pick it up. Also, another telltale sign is you will slowly lose coolant out of your reservoir, and at the time he said that you should not be losing any coolant out of your reservoir. It should not move at all. So if you're losing coolant out of your reservoir, you probably have a bad head gasket. So they replaced the head gasket in the head at 60,000 miles, and they kept it for about a week and a half, and we got it back. After 5,000 miles of driving it, it threw a check engine light and started to misfire really horribly. So we took it back to Ford, and it had the exact same issue. They did not properly prepare the head before they put the head back on, so they ended up putting in a whole long block assembly from Ford.
And like I said, this is where that extended warranty comes in, because that's a lot of money out of pocket that we saved. $10,000.
Yeah, we were lucky. Ford covered all the expenses and the rental car. Ford also had to replace the fuel pump cartridge unit because the fuel indicator gauge was not reading correctly, so they had to replace the entire fuel pump cartridge unit. And now I'm going to show some of the work that I have done on the vehicle myself since Ford had put the engine in, and some other issues that we've had with it.
After the warranty expired, these were some of the issues that my husband had to look at, and these are some kind of like wear and tear items that I personally would have never thought to look at if it wasn't for my husband being very proactive and wanting to just go ahead and get it fixed, get it looked at, and figure out what was causing the issues, so it didn't cost us thousands of dollars at the dealership. So, quick story time. This is one of the issues that happened. So I was driving out of town, and thank goodness I didn't make it very far. My car started shaking and making these crazy noises. It sounded like it was gonna explode. From the back, you know, the sound was coming from the back right corner. And so I called my husband crying. I'm freaking out, you know, my car, my baby is messing up. And so he met me at a gas station. He said, you know, honey, pull over, I'm coming. So he got there, and my car actually decided to put itself in limp mode, so it cut off and didn't want to crank back up. But my husband got there, he plugged in the scan tool. It actually threw a code P144A, and he, turned the car on, got it running. It was in limp mode. We drove it back home, and he figured out what the problem was. He Googled, what that code was, figured out how to fix it. I'm still hysterically crying, but thank goodness I have a wonderful husband, and he fixed my car for me. And he saved me a $200 tow bill. Well, us a $200 tow bill.
All right, and with that problem was the purge valve, which causes the fuel door to flap uncontrollably, so it sounds like the whole car is falling apart. And I'm going to show you what that purge valve is and where it's at under the hood of the car. As you can tell from this brand new Ford tag right here, this is the line that goes bad. It's a purge valve, and it goes with the evaporative emissions, and it goes also behind the intake as well. As you can tell in my my video where I did the carbon cleaning. And down below inside, this is another part of that purge valve. It plugs into multiple different places along the intake, and my suggestion is make sure, even though it looks like you can take this hose and put it under the intake, make sure you take this intake off the top, and it'll make this purge valve replacement a whole lot easier. And it's about $180 valve. Do not get something that is not non-Ford, is my suggestion when it comes to anything evaporative emissions, because just don't buy anything that says Dorman on it, please.
So next we're going to talk about just random things that you don't think about. You buy a maintenance package from Ford, and you get home, you're like, okay, everything's great. But you know what? You need to go back and check behind people, because you know what? Everybody's human. And they're not driving this vehicle every day. You are. They're not going to be stuck on the side of the road. You are. So you want to look at things like... All right, husband, take it away.
All right. We put a K&N filter in the vehicle, and Ford does not like seeing a K&N filter. So if you have one in it and it's actually running properly, I had to take it out because the car didn't want to run right. I have to run a factory filter, make sure the K&N filter is out of it. Make sure the cabin filter has been changed also, and you need to ask for the parts back that they have taken out. If they can't show you an old air filter or cabin filter, they probably haven't done it. I've actually gone behind Ford, and every time they've said they've changed out the cabin filter, they have not. And backtracking slightly, after they replaced the engine, I went back through and had to tighten no less than 10 or 15 bolts, all on the undercarriage, the suspension, and there were vacuum lines that weren't properly plugged in because, unless you have small hands, there's some vacuum lines that you just cannot press in properly. So those didn't get pressed in, and just going back over a major job like that is important, especially if you've had the motor replaced in one of these. And also the splash guard under the vehicle. The screws are garbage that they have from Ford. I would find some screws that are bigger. That's what I did, and replace those, because what they're going into is plastic, so you can go with a little larger screw to hold your splash guard in. And you're probably going to have to zip tie the ends as well, because they're never on correct after an oil change either. Going back to the purge valve problem, what you're hearing is this flapping like about 100 times a second. And also another maintenance tip is to come in here and make sure you clean the O-rings inside of the cap as well. Now to the rims and tires, we've put 4 sets of tires on this car since we've had it. And a money-saving tip is if you go with a 245 series wide tire, you will have a better selection and cheaper selection of tires than if you go back with the 235 series with these 19-inch rims. If I could find a full set of 18-inch rims to put on here, I would, because that would be a whole lot cheaper. Lug nuts. It seems to be a pretty big scam with Ford. They seem to manage to be able to take them off, but all of a sudden they're telling you they need to put 4 or 5. It's always like 5 lug nuts. It's always $100. So go by a parts store and pick up 5 replacement lug nuts before you have any tire work done. Or I'll have a link in the description. Buy an entire new set of chrome lug nuts that are not layered like the originals, and save yourself a bunch of money, because Ford wants $20 a piece to replace lug nuts if you go to Ford and have your wheels done. And if you go to a tire place, they may end up doing the same thing. Even if you argue you messed the lug nuts up whenever you're taking the wheel off, why do I have to pay for it? And you're stuck there until you end up having to pay for it anyway. We're on our 3rd set of brakes since we've had this vehicle. The brakes have always worked very, very well. No brake fade. It actually has the original rotors all the way around it. No warping of the rotors at all. For some reason, this car likes to wear the rear brakes out before the front.
So changing gears here just a little bit again for our kind of last section. We got my car up on the ramps. My husband's actually looking for the different spots for the fluid that he wants to talk to you about. We're going to talk about changing the oil and changing transmission fluid. Really important tips on that. Tips, tricks, you know, all that good stuff. So that's coming up next.
Okay, a very hidden drain on this vehicle is the condensate line for the air conditioning. It is actually under the heat shield. If you see that little white piece of plastic, that's where it comes out at. And she was having water actually come out and drip on her leg, and it's because that condensate line was blocked up. So you have to move the heat shield around and take an air wand and blow some air back up in the system so it will drain properly. And I'll try to back up so you can get a better idea of where it's at. Here's here's part of the exhaust. This is the passenger side, and it's right under that heat shield. As you can tell, I've replaced the lower control arms on both sides. For some reason, I think because most of the torque goes to the passenger side. The passenger side one is the one that goes out first. I changed out this one, and the ball joint was really bad. The driver's side one wasn't as bad, but it was going to eventually go. Quick tip: if you're replacing this control arm, if you loosen up your sway bar end links, this will go back in a heck of a lot easier. It was taking me over an hour to try to put this back in until I took the end links loose, which one of my next projects is to replace the end links. 100,000 miles over, the end links need to be replaced.
Not gonna lie, I actually enjoyed watching him struggle a little bit, but it was nice when he finally got it done.
Overall, it's been a good car. We've enjoyed it. The performance has been more than expected for such a little vehicle. My suggestions for fluids would be fully synthetic AMS oil or Mobil 1 if you're wanting to try to save the money. Oil filter, a Mobil 1 or an AMS oil filter are the only filters that I would use, and I would change the oil every 5,000 miles. And I would also change the plugs at least every 25 to 35,000 miles on any turbocharged vehicle. Now for the transmission Ford says is a non-serviceable transmission. That's incorrect. There are plenty of YouTube videos showing you how to flush and replace the fluid on the transmission. I've changed the fluid on mine 3 times already. I plan on changing it after every oil change. It's only really around 3 quarts, and make sure you use Mercon LV. If you don't come back from Ford with Mercon LV, that's wrong. It's so little fluid that goes into the transmission that I actually use this pan right here. The very first time that you flush your fluid, you're going to need to follow the process of warming the car back up, going to there's a screw in the side of the transmission that you have to unscrew while the car is level to make sure you have the proper amount of fluid. After you've done that initial change, that's whenever you want to take and get a clear pan like this and figure out exactly how much fluid comes out the next time that you flush the transmission. So you'll be consistent and you won't have to keep going and leveling the car and having the transmission fluid come out, and you'll know exactly how much fluid at least came out of it. And another little problem that these develop after a while of shifting so much is right behind this piece of aluminum gets very, very sharp. There's no way to replace this without replacing the whole shifter, which costs $400. How do I know?
Yeah, because I looked it up. There's no aftermarket for that.
Yeah, so I took clear epoxy and I just built it up layer by layer until this didn't catch anymore. So that's going to be an issue that you're going to have on one that if you play with your shifter all the time.
Yeah, I do.
And that's a fix that hopefully will work for you. Thank you everyone for putting up with my long-windedness and my ums and me just going on and on and on like I'm doing right now. But thank you for watching. We've enjoyed the car.
This was not in any way to bash Ford for anything. They actually have a really good program for their maintenance, and it is worth every penny. And all of their parts have a 36 month warranty. So if anything happens to it, like say your battery dies and within 36 months, guess what? They'll replace it for free.
Or the purge valve. If that purge valve goes bad in 36 months, then I get one replaced for free. Everybody have a good day, and try to wrench and have a good time with your spouse, and try to involve your kids, and so the next generation will know how to work on their own vehicles too. You have a good day.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you everyone for watching, and thank you for those who have joined and subscribed to the Swamp Fox family. If you can give me a thumbs up and comment in the description, I'd really appreciate it. Please look for the links in the description. Become a Patreon member if you want to support the channel. And remember, family and bills come first, always. Find it, fix it before it breaks. And, quote, not for me, but remember, you can live in your car, but not drive your house. See you guys next time.
So babe, when I back it up, I should actually just put it in drive and go that way off the ramps?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah, the S means for super cool.
Super cool? Okay, super speed forward. All right.
Forward, and your next husband better not waste my insurance on something stupid like a Chevrolet.
Oh, bless it. No, never a Chevrolet, honey. Ford only. Ford forever.